Well, it's been a tumultuous time for personal finance during the pandemic. With more tips on markets and investing, we're joined once again by our good friend Seth Allen from Cadence Financial. Seth, welcome back to BT. Lots to talk about today.
Yeah, thanks, Thor.
Now, when we look at the initial sell-off in March, the markets are recovering right now. And can we keep this kind of momentum going for the rest of the year?
Well, we've definitely seen a V-shaped recovery underway with the markets, both in Canada and the United States. But we're also witnessing a disconnect between the markets and the economy, because the economy, unlike the market, the shape of recovery is starting to look like a square root or a Nike swoosh. And the reason for seeing the market do this type of recovery is really because earnings were expected to be bad, and they're not as bad as expected. Also seeing the central banks, the Fed more specifically, that's been dumping a ton of money into the system to provide liquidity, which has led to lower interest rates and in some cases near zero or even negative. And of course, there's a lot of optimism around the COVID vaccine imminently being rolled out, which, that still remains to be seen. And, whether this is a full recovery underway or not, if the bear market has ended, this would be or go down in history as the shortest bear market in history. That being said, I think the market is probably priced in the best case scenario. And what I mean by that is we're seeing valuations well above historic norms, obviously the optimism about a potential vaccine, and any kind of hiccup on that or the economy falters, we could see a correction, the markets take a pause, or even worse, a bear market going into the fall or into next year.
I always love talking geopolitics with you. So what should people investing keep in mind as we look ahead to the November U.S. elections and the possibility of an election in Canada with a potential non-confidence vote after the throne speech in September?
Yeah, well, I think right now the market's not too concerned about the U.S. election.
Okay.
I think it's been more concerned about what's been going on with earnings and, of course, what the Federal Reserve is doing. That being said, now that we're through the summer and all the political rhetoric from both parties in the U.S., I think we're going to start to see more specifics about policy. And that means, regarding regulation, taxation, and this could affect the market in general or specific sectors such as healthcare, technology, or energy for that matter. In Canada, it's a little bit of a different situation because we have obviously the current government policies where we're seeing massive deficit spending, real issues around ethics. And of course, the Conservatives have just announced a new leader, and talk has picked up that there may be a snap election following the throne speech in September. If the current party stays in power, I think that you'll see the status quo for investors with an expectation of much higher taxation going into next year. Whereas if the Conservatives win, perhaps the taxation won't be such a burden, and sectors such as oil and gas will seem more interesting. Nevertheless, I do think as an investor, whether you're in Canada or the U.S., it's the U.S. election you really got to pay attention to, because you have two different type of leaders that are proposing very different outcomes in terms of how they want to lead the United States. And ultimately that affects the economy and the markets. For our clients, I'm quite happy for us to be more defensive going into the election, keep some cash on the sidelines, and frankly wait till the election is done to figure out what sectors you need to be in. I will tell you this election will be a nail-biter in the United States. I think that we may not even know the night of the election who wins. It could be the following day, and of course, Congress is up for a turnover as well, both in the House and the Senate. So this will definitely be an interesting one to watch as an investor.
Sound advice as always. Thanks so much, Seth. And people can get in touch with you at cadencefinancialgroup.com. And we look forward to more of your thoughts as we get closer to the U.S. election.
Thanks, Thor. I appreciate it.
All right, you take care. That's Seth Allen from Cadence Financial Group. And we'll be back with more BT right after this.